Hey everybody, good bold morning. Welcome to Bold TV. I'm Carrie Sheffield here with Clay Aiken.
Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. If you are watching us on Facebook or wherever you're watching us, make sure you like the Bold Facebook page. Make sure
Bold TV.
Bold TV. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, and you can download this as a podcast available on SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast listening pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Big week as always.
Yes, and also make sure to put your comments, your questions.
I was going to get to that probably.
We'll get there eventually.
But yes, it's important. It's important that you make sure that you're including your comments and your questions, because we appreciate those. And a lot of times folks will ask a question or put in a comment that'll guide the discussion in a way that we hadn't necessarily planned on. It'll give Carrie a rabbit hole to run down.
Yes, or it'll add additional insight so that Clay can go on a beautiful soliloquy that I will correct him on.
Oh, I never do that. You never go down rabbit holes,
Never.
Right? So we have plenty of different rabbit holes to go down today because it's been a pretty eventful week, and I would say just yesterday alone, obviously incredibly eventful for more reasons than I think most people would actually think.
So many things. Well, I mean, obviously, first, the big one was Comey's testimony on Capitol Hill on the Senate Intelligence Committee. So we will get to that. We're going to dedicate a lot more to that, including our rosy-colored glasses segment. But we also want to talk a little bit about the UK elections.
Which got completely forgotten, I think, yesterday, especially in the U.S. media, in the wake of all the drama that was Comey. But a huge deal in the U.K. And I am admittedly a junkie, and it's well documented that I'm a junkie when it comes to watching UK election returns. They do it very differently than we do. Fascinating to me, if you watch the news in the UK yesterday, all day long during the day for them, they don't really mention the elections that much. It's not until the polls close that they dive into it. I think, God, imagine if we did that like this in this country, where they don't just get bombarded with election stuff.
For 2 years.
Right. So they do it very differently, incredibly differently. And the biggest difference, I think, perhaps, was that this election was called as a snap election. So the Prime Minister, Theresa May, was able to call an election earlier than it was originally scheduled to be. Not something she had to do, but she did it because she believed she was ahead in the polls by multiple double digits, and she believed that she could, I guess, rally her more support to her side and strengthen her mandate in the UK Parliament as she went into these negotiations. And Carrie, what happened with that gamble?
Well, it appears that it was, first of all, today's Theresa May. If I talk to you in British for a little bit.
Not like that, you can't.
Honey, polling in the UK don't make no sense. Like Brexit, it showed that Brexit was going to lose. And you know what? Brexit won. So when you poll set, that was my British accent.
Oh, well, it's not very good, is it?
Oh, how's yours?
It's quite good, actually.
Actually, you're
anyway,
upper class. Anyway.
But anyway.
No, the thing is, she was cocky. Look, Theresa May ain't no Iron Lady. She is no Margaret Thatcher. Like, Margaret Thatcher would never have done this. Margaret Thatcher would have just gone and governed. Like, she had a policy mandate to implement her agenda. This is my take. Like, Theresa May won her position. She was the prime minister. And if she was
Did she win her position? No. Not true.
No,
she was given her position because David. And I think that's an argument for why.
A true leader takes the opportunity and she builds the coalition, she builds the mandate. That's what a true leader does. Right, well, and I feel like by calling this election, it was undermining the confidence in herself. I think it was a big mistake.
I wonder how you would have felt if she had gotten a big mandate. I mean, essentially, she's the leader of the Conservative Party. They're Republicans over there. Their version of the Republicans over there. So I
said this like 2-3 weeks ago.
Well, listen, I mean, the argument was that she has to go into this EU negotiation to extract England from the UK from the EU, and she was not elected. David Cameron had been elected the leader and resigned after the Brexit vote. She was appointed within the party, and I think she thought, first of all, she was ahead in polls by a huge margin. And you can say that polls are not accurate, but the truth is the ones in the UK have been accurate this time around. She was ahead substantially. She thought, hey, I'm ahead. Let me call this because it's my right to do so. Strengthen my position. Get enough of a mandate behind me that when I go into these EU negotiations, I can say, listen, the public is with me, et cetera, so she can have a stronger hand. And then a lot of things happened in the UK in the interim. They only have a 5-week election cycle, which is just the most delightful thing I've ever heard of in my life. They only have 5 weeks to campaign.
Don't leave us. I'm afraid you're going to go across the pond.
But in that period, she not only did you see 2 horrific attacks in the UK, the London Bridge attack and the attack in Manchester, which I think harmed her a little bit because there was some discussion after the London Bridge attack about the need for more police, and she had been, as Home Secretary, part of taking away funding for police officers. So I think that hurt her some. But also, her party put out a manifesto, which was roundly criticized because of a lot of the austerity cuts that she planned to put in place.
And yet the Wall Street Journal said they didn't like her because she said she wanted to increase taxes in some respects. So she was sort of a namby-pamby conservative.
She was weak. And she's a politician. And she was running against, and they don't do it the same way as we do, but she was running against essentially the UK's version of Bernie Sanders, right? Who a lot of people in his Labour Party had believed was completely unelectable and would not be able to get a majority because Bernie Sanders is a democratic socialist. Jeremy Corbyn is a straight-up socialist, unapologetic about it. He's rough around the edges, and I think they thought that he would not be able to bring support to the Labour Party. He proved them wrong. He does not have a majority, but he certainly gained, I think, 38 seats.
Yeah, well, and it gained enough to erode the Conservative governing majority, so they had to get a new coalition, and Theresa May doesn't have an outright claim to the prime ministership. So right now, she's reportedly with the Queen, kissing the hand of the Queen and asking to keep her job. So I think she'll get to keep her job. But I think that she misread her people. I think that she was never really a big proponent of Brexit. And yet she was the one who was supposed to understand the signal that was being sent by Brexit. So I think because Corbyn did so well, it was, like you said, the Bernie Sanders, which is the anti-establishment perspective. Right. So she never really channeled that anti-establishment ethos. And that was her problem, I think, because she never really took that mantle. She never took the baton of what Brexit meant. And that was a bad calculation.
Well, I mean, but that said, most of the areas, most of the color constituencies instead of districts, but most of the constituencies that voted for leave ended up coming to her because the party that really had been in the driving force behind Brexit didn't put a lot of people up for election. They didn't have any, they kind of went away after they got what they wanted. So most of those leave areas went to Theresa May's Conservative Party. Her issue was that she lost a lot of the seats that she had in the center of the country that had been Remain. She lost a lot of those to the Labour Party. My question for you is, and what I've been fascinated about, because I literally stayed up till 1:30 watching all of these returns come in, and then I jumped right back on the TV this morning to watch it again. There was a backlash amongst voters in the UK to the Brexit election, to the Brexit vote. A lot more young people. Turnout was higher for this particular election than it has been in years. A lot more young people showed up to the polls to vote than had voted in the past. And a lot of people on BBC and Sky News and ITV and their news networks in the UK are talking about how it wasn't necessarily just a second Brexit referendum at all, admittedly, but a lot of the energy and enthusiasm was based on people who were upset with how Brexit went. What do Republicans need to take from that? If the Brexit vote was essentially the precursor to what pushed Donald Trump into power here in the U.S., what should Republicans in this country take, if anything, from watching the backlash in the UK dramatically erode the Conservative Party there?
Yeah, well, this leads into the next headline that is a lesson I think that the Republicans had, which was that the Republicans just passed last night also a Dodd-Frank replacement bill. And to me,
she doesn't have an answer to that.
I do have an answer because it's related. Okay. And that is that the way you do what Theresa May did not do is to focus on policy and to get an agenda that's substantive, and you get that moving, you get momentum. She just really muddled. She just was muddling. She didn't say, okay, I have been given this baton, I'm going to run with it. I'm going to put forward a substantive policy agenda. And Lord knows, you know how I feel about Donald Trump and all the distraction that we've had with, the issue with Comey, and we'll get more into that. But I think what Republicans can learn from this is that they have both the House, the Senate, they have the White House. They have a moment, and the question is, are they going to seize it, which is what Theresa May did not do.
I always think it's so cute when you talk about Republican policy in this particular Congress, as if they're going to get anything done
this,
whatsoever.
This Dodd-Frank replacement bill is a big deal. I mean, it substantively restructures community banking, it restructures the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
And it passed which House of Congress?
It passed the House,
okay,
yes.
But not expected to necessarily pass the Senate, if at all, at least not in the same format that it is in now. So
give it some time, and also
just like the healthcare replacement bill, which
is going to go. No, it's going to go for a vote before the July 4th election. That's what Mitch McConnell said. We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. But it's obviously there's a lot of distraction going on, and the big reason that a lot of the distraction's going on is because we got a lot of stuff going on with Trump and Russia and Comey. So let's move to. Do we have a graphic for this? Is that what your goal is?
No. Well, we're going to get one. We don't have one today.
For this
rose-colored glasses, and we're just going to. I don't think we have time. We've got to get the Congresswoman in soon. So let's just do one rosy-colored video.
You want to just rock, paper, scissors it and see who gets
okay,
yeah,
ready?
Yes. Okay, so you get to do yours, which is going to disappoint the staff because they wanted to do mine, but whatever. Okay, so we got
time. We'll do yours at the end.
Okay, sounds good. We have your video ready, Carrie?
Yep. Let's see my rosy-colored glasses video.
Oh, well, let's explain.
First of all, if Director Comey in any way thought that he was being intimidated or the president was trying to interfere with an investigation, I believe that Director Comey had an obligation to report it to the Justice Department, to tell those around him, because that could be considered a crime. And as director of the FBI, he had an obligation to make that known. As far as I know, he didn't. In fact, when the deputy director, Andy McCabe, was testifying last week, he said there's been no interference and no obstruction of the investigation whatsoever. Also, Director Comey comes before the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee. He had an obligation, I believe, to tell those committees because he was briefing us on the status of the investigation. And I'm not aware of Director Comey ever saying to anyone in the Congress, and I think Senator Burke concurred in this, about any interference in the investigation.
So our rose-colored glasses segment, really quickly, is an opportunity for us to take a look at one particular video that Carrie chooses or that I choose, and see how people on very different sides of the aisle can look at the same thing and see something completely different. So Carrie chose this video because she saw what Representative King said in a certain way. What was that?
I saw it as Trump's vindication because Comey is legally obligated. If he believes there is obstruction of justice, Comey is legally obligated to report this. He should have gone to the oversight committees in Congress. He should have gone to his superiors in DOJ. So basically, this clip, and Comey reaffirmed it in his testimony yesterday, showed that, and look, what Trump did was sketchy, undoubtedly sketchy. Is it illegal? No. And I think that there is definitely a difference there. Same thing with what Loretta Lynch did by pressuring Comey to call something a matter instead of an investigation. Same thing. Sketchy. Is it illegal? Well, we can argue that.
Right. So, well, first of all, we're going to do another segment. We're going to start another segment on this show where we have to respond to something without blaming the other side at some point, because somehow you're going to get that Loretta Lynch thing in, which is completely irrelevant.
It was mentioned yesterday in the testimony.
But you made my argument for me already, so I really don't need to respond. You can't say Comey has a legal responsibility to report obstruction of justice if 10 seconds later, you're going to say there was no obstruction of justice. You can't get mad at Comey for not reporting what he thought was obstruction of justice when yesterday he admitted that he was not in a position yet to determine if that was obstruction of justice. You can't have both. And I would imagine that Republicans would rather have Comey saying, I'm not sure if it's obstruction of justice yet. So you can't be mad at him because he didn't say anything. I think his response to that was that he needed time to determine whether or not that's what that was. There was nothing to report. He felt it. He felt what his conversations with Trump were. I can't quote him. I don't know the word, but he thought they were suspect. He thought he was very uncomfortable. He didn't think they were appropriate, but he did not yet say that he believed that it rose to the specter of obstruction of justice, and he left that to Robert Mueller to determine. So I would say that you're really kind of barking up the wrong tree, anybody who's yelling at him for not saying something Because if you want to be mad at him for not reporting obstruction of justice, then you have to admit there was obstruction of justice. So if you want to do that, you want to get pissed at him for not doing that,
look,
then we can play that game.
In either
but that
scenario,
means you're admitting that Donald Trump obstructed justice.
No, Comey himself admitted in the testimony that he didn't have the cojones to say to the president, "You can't say that to me. That's inappropriate. This is a bright line, and you might be close."
There's times when you say things in here where I am so dumbfounded, I don't know how to say to you, "Holy crap, Carrie, you're completely insane." But you know what?
Sometimes you get shocked. Have I ever said anything illegal, Clay?
No, but
if I did, I hope that you would stop me immediately.
Great, then I appreciate that. You are now just right there admitting that what Donald Trump did was illegal.
No,
so
I am
then,
not. I don't even know what
does it
you're
matter?
talking about.
Again, I say that, but Republicans are talking out of both sides of their mouth. If what he did was illegal, then yes, Comey had a responsibility to say something. But if what he did was not illegal, then no, Comey didn't have a responsibility to say anything until he determined it was illegal.
Exactly.
So which one was it?
Exactly.
So no,
you confirmed my point.
No, but then which one was it? Well,
look,
no, hold on.
Clay,
we got to go to the guest. We got to go to the guest.
We have to go to the guest. We'll come back to this.
Okay, we're going to come back to this.
We'll come back to this.
You guys put it in the comments
put it in the notes.
to come back to this.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mickey agrees with you. Mickey Alessi says Comey could not conclude at the time there was a definite obstruction, but he certainly suspected, and thus the memos.
Okay, we'll come back because I'm bad about not wrapping things up.
Yes.